seems to have leaked their proposals in the CBA stuff, and we're going to look at it here together as much as we can see. I pulled up the Sports Business Journal, and they're still working, obviously trying to hammer something out and get it done. I do not feel good about hearing that some of the leadership was not able to make it in person to some of the meetings that went down on Monday due to travel issues. I think that is almost inexcusable. If you're, a leader of a union, like you got to get to town faster than just traveling on a day. And I know the Northeast is had a lot of cold weather, and perhaps it wasn't feasible travel wise to end up there, but you got to figure that out. I don't know, drive if you got to. I don't, I don't know. But let me pull up this chart here. Let's go through it here together, man, because the more numbers that I'm seeing, look, I don't work at the WNBA or anything. I can't tell these people what they ultimately want to approve of and everything, but I think the players have one clear shining north star that they are looking for, and it's a better percentage on the revenue sharing. Like I think they wanted 30, on the revenue sharing. So just looking at the supermax salaries by 2031, it looks like you'll have the average players over here $1 million. This is just probably your Joe Schmo of the league, sixth, seventh man in the league, or lady, excuse me. 780 and then 540 back to 2036. So in 5 years' time, that'll go up there. And right now, the average salary is about 120K. They play 4 months a year, and so like it's not like there's 82 games. I would imagine that eventually the league is going to push for more games. In our supermax salary section, that one's up to 2.4 million, and this one starts at 1.29 for next season. So that would be like a pretty large jump in context to what they get currently. Now, like I said, I can't tell them whether that's quote unquote good enough for them or not. That's just the salary thing, and I think it's interesting that the league talks in absolutes about salary when the salary almost can be anything. Um, you know, it's more about the revenue percentages in the players' eyes. So obviously, they had that collective bargaining session, no new proposals. ESPN got this confidential league presentation with that chart that was above. And we're going to look at 37 different items. So let's lock in. We're going to have a good time going through this here. So let's see. All right. So, one, new revenue sharing system. Pretty vague. Don't know what that means. Number two, significantly increase player salaries tied to revenue growth. Three, upward salary adjustments to all existing rookie scale contracts. So that means, anybody that's a relatively new player in the league that's on a rookie deal. Think all the your Aaliyah Boston's, Caitlin Clark, Paige Beckers, all the rookies the last 3 or 4 years would fall under that. So they'd all get taken care of, presumably. Team charter travel, that's an expensive thing that the league already did institute, but it looks like they want to code that into their bylaws. First class travel in and out of team market, that's pretty good. Higher annual salary increases in multi-year contracts. So some of these deals in most like pro sports league, they're escalators. It's like, all right, I have a 3 year $30 million contract, right? So like the first year I'll get like 9 million, then the next year it'll be like 11, and then you just like escalate from there. And some people have incentive Latin deals. So number seven, more allowable guaranteed contracts per team. Not sure what that means. Number eight, additional categories of salary protection. So I would think that means like it has to do with like injuries and maybe hardship players. Nine, two new developmental player roster spots. So that's good. That's another thing that I have talked about on the channel is the need to increase the roster spots. So the hardship game kind of comes to an end. Increased salary cap exception for pregnant players. New salary cap exception for season ending injuries. That's a different one. 12, higher allowable salaries and veteran extensions. So that looks to be like a version of the Larry Bird rule, to where people can re sign their own players over the cap with a certain amount of service years in the league. That's basically to ensure teams can stay together. So let's see what we got going on. Number 13. I gotta say, I'm not hating everything that I'm hearing so far. 13, new team staffing requirements, physicians, trainers, strength and conditioning coaches, physical therapists, access to nutritionists. I think that kind of goes without saying that that stuff should be there. The fact that it has to be in there, kind of it's a glaring thing. Increased performance bonuses for awards and playoff advancement. Yeah, Caitlin Clark specifically called this out before. They're saying it's a joke. I remember, I think it was like winning the Commissioner's Cup, like you get more than the winner of the finals or something. There was something that didn't make sense. Higher team contributions to players' 401k and retirement accounts. I mean, why not? Team ain't doing nothing with that money. Recognition payment for current retirees. They do not say, what type of amount or anything like that, but the fact that retired players thus far, they basically have no pension, that's like a wrong that has to be eventually righted. Um, Increase per diem with annual out of cost living increases. And this is the WNBA. If you're talking about increase per diem, that's pretty good. But at the same time, it's like, there's way more money now. So this is not any skin off your back. Additional funding for player programs, access for recently retired players. So I would think that would be like making like when players retire, like how I don't have a check coming in anymore. How am I gonna transition into whatever I'm doing next? Like maybe it's like a little buffer or something. 19, broader access to family planning benefits. I don't know what that means. Medical benefits continuation for players waived after the midpoint of the season. That is very important. Like, say, you sustain an injury that like isn't like caught, essentially, like it or is misdiagnosed or something like that, and you can like continue to get care even if you got waived like while you were giving your body to the sport. New requirement to allow young children of players and their caregivers to travel with the team. Additional hotel rooms. Yeah, that seems pretty. Like these feel like no brainers. Like this is stuff that should have already been happening. But I think the players were at such a point of weakness, and the financial status of the league before was so kind of grim. You couldn't guarantee this seemingly no brainer type things. 22, required family rooms during games. 23, increased life insurance benefits. 24, pregnant player trade consent. I think that's interesting. That's just something men's sports don't have to think about. Say there's a pregnant player and they send her from, let's say the Sparks to like, Toronto's coming in the league next year. We send her to Toronto and she's like, hey, my doctors are like over here. Like, how do I, and maybe I don't want to change doctors. And, that's a lot. So, guaranteed training camp invitation for pregnant players with expiring contracts. Yeah, there's a lot to think about, in women's sports when it comes to, people being mothers and, we saw the De'Erica Hamby stuff before, the league kind of tried to get it in front of that. New non-birthing parent leave policy. Don't know what that means. Increased promotional and commercial appearance fees. So anytime the league makes them do something, promotional wise, need to run that yen. Additional mental health resources. I would imagine that's something that needs to heavily be invested in, especially with how online a lot of the players are in this league. Earlier first payment of annual salary. They're just dressing up, giving the players more money in different ways rather than the way the players are kind of asking for it, which is like, hey, just build it into the overall infrastructure rather than trying to give us little crumbs of it, in different ways, like the per diems, and we'll pay you a little earlier, and we'll give you some more 401k and different stuff like that. That's what I'm noticing as I go through this. Mobile medical app record for players. Why wouldn't they be able to have an app? Ability to invest in and have endorsement deals with sports betting, fantasy, and cannabis companies. Now, do they test for cannabis? Can these people consume cannabis, on their, downtime? Some people use it for pain management, different stuff like that. The sports betting stuff, I hate it, but it's just a reality of like where all this money tends to come from with the sponsors now. They're just too deep in bed with all that stuff. 50% of team fines donated to Players Association selected charities. Elimination of marijuana testing. Look at that. In that case, 31 and 33 kind of complement each other really nicely. New treatment programs for marijuana alcohol abuse. So this one actually kind of goes against it. So like if you're not testing for marijuana, like maybe I guess it's like, hey, somebody's like, yo, I got a problem, I want to stop. Like, how do I, help, with that? But 35 shorter disqualification periods under the anti-drug program, complimenting all-star tickets for all players. Like, why wouldn't they have that anyway? Like, I don't know. Free WNBA league pass. That's comedy. That's comedy. That should already be a thing. Yeah. So I gotta say, looking at it and thinking about these, 37 items, I think some of them are obviously way more important than others, and some of them just are kind of, word salad, for lack of a better word. Combined with that chart with the salaries on it, it's going to begin to look very difficult for the Players Association in the eyes of the public, who is like, all right, man, like look at the salary increases. They're gonna see the 37 things, and some people are gonna be more impressed than others with them. But I think a lot of people are going to be impressed with those. I just don't think the players are, because ultimately, like I was saying before, their North Star is that percentage of revenue share. Like that's kind of what it is. They have, to factor in the television deal that's on the way, the new one that's coming through. So like, there's just so much about this stuff that this stuff is now kind of coming through back channels. A nice, neatly organized chart that everyone can understand. But I imagine there's a lot of like extra stuff that's not on these charts. So I guess the best thing that I can say is continue to be patient. If you're anticipating on watching some WNBA this year, it's still really all up in the air. Caitlin Clark has some encouraging words that she could see a deal getting worked out in the next couple weeks, but who knows? So, what do you guys think of the league proposals? Anyway, my name is Rich. This is One Lifetime. Peace.